Hey, Dale. It's on Zoom. Yeah, it says you have to use the Zoom link. It's in the email. Do you want me to chat it to you? Okay. Let me get into it. I have no idea, Dale. Oh, it says if I change the calendar, it doesn't go to her. Because I didn't make it. Casey made it.
Hi, good.
All
How
right.
are you?
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm going to start my video here. Give me one moment.
Did you link in on your calendar or through my email that I just sent?
I did both. And so it looked to me like we're not meeting via Google Meets, correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep,
I'm going to shut that down.
Yep, good.
You probably
That
get
confused me too.
You probably get a note that says I'm asking to join because that was the link. Yeah, that was sent. And so anyway, okay.
Good. We're good. Good to know. I was equally confused, but Amanda, as always, clarified everything. So
Fantastic.
Yep. And so you're going to have a nice background. I'm going to have a very casual background, and Amanda the right background. So
That's fine.
good.
Sounds
Dale,
So
do you want to try your slides up to make sure that they're looking okay before we go live?
you don't trust
You
me?
feel good?
Yeah. you
I don't know. Do you feel good about it?
Let me get them up and going, and let me put them on the slideshow.
Okay, yep, I made you both co-hosts, so you should be able to share and everything.
Perfect. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is I will first go live. See, what we're going to do is after the intros where Rachel and I will be visible like we are. Once we
Yep.
do the intros, then we'll switch to the slideshow and I'll tell everyone, we're going to that mode. And
Okay.
but let me do a slide or a screen share right now. And just make sure you all can see it. And can you see it?
Yep,
Perfect.
yeah,
And
yep, Boerigter questions.
perfect. So you've got level learning on your screen.
Yeah, looks
Perfect.
good, Dale.
We're ready to roll. So
Okay,
thank you
and then you're
both.
supposed to do the closed captioning too.
Good grief. You're kidding me. More confusion.
Nope, you just do present, and then if you put your cursor over it, it should have like a little thing that,
Okay, just a minute. So I'm under screen share.
yep. You present like you just did,
Yep,
and
I got
then,
it.
so then you have your Google Slides up. And then in the, like, if you put your cursor over the slide, there should be like a little gray box on the left-hand corner. And you're gonna want the little gray box, that little air, there's something on the right that then says like closed captioning, and you want to click that.
All right, just a sec.
Okay. So you want to present.
Just a minute. I'm making my way around. All right, someone wants to get in early. Don't let them in.
Yeah,
Well,
don't, yeah, I just, yeah, they can sit there.
Okay, so I'm in the screen sharing mode right now because you all see this.
Yep,
And then I'm going to the present mode.
yep, perfect.
And so,
Okay,
and then
so
where
if
on
you,
the screen?
is there a little like gray box somewhere on your screen? I don't see it.
I don't see it either.
Okay, never mind. We won't do it then. That's fine.
Just a minute, just a minute. Let
And
me
I don't know
see
if this helps, but Zoom automatically does captioning. And so if you needed to post this and the like afterwards, they do captioning.
Oh,
Okay.
well.
It just wouldn't be in the moment. Does that make sense? But if you send out the
Right.
recording, you can slice like this portion off, because when I joined, it said it was already recording. So you can slice it however you
Yeah.
wish. Does that make sense, to get this part off of there? And then,
Yeah.
the captions will automatically be on there, the closed captionings. Yeah.
Perfect. Good. Well, thank you.
But
Then we don't have to worry about that since I can't find it.
It's good, Dale. You're good.
I like to hear that. Sometimes I wonder. So,
So do you want this up when people come in or not?
no, I'm going to take it down. I'm just,
Okay.
Okay, good. Good.
Okay.
So I would
So
say,
there's one student, but we can let her sit there for a second.
yeah, I would say when it's 2 minutes before, we can start letting people in, unless you think that's going to cause a log jam or a traffic jam. And if it is, then whenever you think, feel free to send people in.
Yeah, no, I think that'll be fine. It just will be awkward for a few minutes while no one's talking, but that's fine too.
Oh, Rachel and I will entertain them as always.
happy to entertain. I love a good chat about the weekend, chat about pickleball, chat about life. It's fabulous. So anyway, I don't know if I've met you. You said your name was Amanda?
Yes, yep. Oh yeah, it doesn't have my name there. I'm Amanda. I work in the Boerigter Center with Dale.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm just helping with like letting people in and the chat for him and that kind of thing. So
Oh, outstanding. Great.
yeah,
Well, it's nice to
it's
meet
nice
you,
to meet
Amanda.
you.
Yeah, my name is
Yes.
Rachel. My last name is Vandenbroek. I'm not a little Dutch gal from West Michigan, but actually I hail from Pella, Iowa, which is probably as Dutchy as Holland, where I live. Actually, I'm just down the road from you, Amanda.
Okay.
Yeah, I live in Holland, but then I work at Grand Valley State University. But Dale and I know each other for a long time. I used to work
Okay.
at Plant Moran, but even before I worked at Plant Moran, one of my best friends, her name is Trudy Vanderplug. She worked at the Career Center before it was the Boerigter Center. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, cool.
So, mhm.
Yes. Well, good. We're glad that you're here.
Yeah, wonderful. So
Yes, and I'm glad you introduced yourself to Amanda, because when I would introduce you, I would mispronounce the last part of your last name. You certainly pronounced it with a nice Dutch twist. Because,
Vandenbroek. Yeah,
yes, Broek.
Brooke.
I was going
yeah,
to say Brook. So
yeah. It's
that
Broek.
really
Yeah.
confused me. Yeah,
And
Broek.
it's from the pants because brookies are pants, in Dutch. So anyway, fun
Oh,
fact for you
really?
today.
In Dutch,
Mhm.
it means pan, like you're cooking something up for us.
So pants, Pants, like
Oh,
your brookies.
oh,
Yeah.
what you wear, not what you
Yeah.
cook.
Yeah.
Ah, gotcha.
No,
Okay. All
no.
right.
Maybe
Okay.
I would be a better cook if I if that were the case, but I'm not. Oh, all right.
Okay. I'm going to turn my camera off and mute myself, and then I'm going to let these people in. So you'll see them in
Perfect.
here in just a second.
Perfect. Thank you. And we'll entertain them. Good morning, all. My name is Dale Austin. We're going to get started in just a minute or two. We'll probably give people until about 1 minute after 11 to hop in, so to speak, or at least simply join us. And I'll then introduce our guest for today and the outline of our program. And then we'll roll. Our plan is to be done by approximately 11:45 to 11:50. Last year when we did this session, some stayed after and asked our presenter a series of questions, asked me a series of questions. So for those of you that do not have a noon commitment and want to stick around or have other questions, we can by all means address those. But again, thank you for joining us, and we'll start in the next couple of minutes. For those of you just joining us, I just mentioned that we're going to wait another minute for people to join us. So we'll start when my digital clock says 11:01, and we'll roll. So thank you again for joining us. And just a shout out to each of you for muting yourselves. Nicely done. Thank you. You've learned this routine, not that you haven't had quite a bit of practice over the last year and a half. So that's good. Okay, I have 11:01. I'd like to welcome you to this session on love of learning, basically a planning guide to graduate school application process. My name is Dale Austin with the Boerigter Center. Last August 20th, I celebrated 40 years at Hope College. And so I feel fortunate to be at Hope College. And with us is Rachel Vandenbroek. And Rachel is at Grand Valley. She is with their graduate programs office. And Rachel and I go back many years. Rachel has, speaking of love of learning, Rachel has not just one graduate degree, but two from both the University of Iowa, one of the nation's best graduate programs, as well as from William Penn University, a great Quaker school in Iowa. And so if there's anyone to talk about graduate school planning, she has plenty of experience, both in her advising roles currently. She also was in advising at Northern Illinois University, as well as the University of Illinois. She most recently, before coming to Grand Valley, served in the HR and recruiting function with a major Midwest company called Plant Moran, which Hope has had a longstanding recruiting and work relationship with. So Rachel comes with a bevy of experience and perspective. And Rachel, welcome today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dale. Happy to be here.
That's great. So what we're going to do this morning is in just a minute, I'm going to shift to our presentation mode where there will be a Google slide deck where I'm going to basically ask Rachel a series of questions. And Rachel is going to respond to those questions in a minute. She's going to provide a broad overview of kind of the 4 or 5 areas that she's going to touch on. And then I'll pose my first question to her. And then as we go along, at the end of each segment, there'll be 4 segments. We're just going to pause for your questions, and you can put them in the chat. For you some of you brave souls, if you want to just unmute and ask it, whatever works, do it. And then we should be in great shape. And then, of course, Rachel will provide in the chat box her email address if you have further questions. And then you can always reach me in the Boerigter Center, austin@hope.edu. So I'm always available to have further conversations about this important process. So let me go right now to sharing my screen so that we can get underway. And you should see on your screen Level of Learning, your guide to applying for graduate school. And we see our 2 people that are involved with this. And so, basically, Rachel, would you like to provide us an overview of what you have in mind for us?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dale. And thank you again for this invitation. I love working with Hope College and you. And you've amazing students. So I'm glad to be here today. So today, when we think about graduate school, it's a big question, right? As to, do I attend and when do I attend? So we're going to talk today about FIND. What is it, to provide you an overview of what actually is graduate school, FIT, and kind of thinking through the question of what's motivating you to pursue graduate education that oftentimes will help you determine what schools are the best fit for me and when to attend as well. Also, I always get the question about funding. How do you finance graduate education? And in addition to that, we'll round out with apply and just what are some few pro tips that you can think about as you're preparing for a graduate school or a professional school application. And then, of course, as Dale mentioned, we'll have plenty of opportunity to answer your questions throughout the presentation and, of course, at the end as well. So find, fit, fund, and apply. Let's do it, Dale.
Outstanding. So first question just to pose to you for us to think about is, what types of graduate and professional programs are available for students?
Sure. And it really runs the gamut, right? And so, of course, you're going to have master's degree programs. Master's degree typically provide a specialized preparation in a field of study. So asking yourself the question, what do you want to be master of? So my first master's degree is in library and information science. So that was an entree into the field of librarianship for me. My second master's is in business leadership. So the focus of that was on organizational development, how to lead organizations and the like, but all provided a specialized preparation in a particular field of study. Another example could be occupational therapy, right? Specialized field of study. But then you also have doctoral programs. So think PhD, right? Thinking through, like, do I want to become a faculty member? Do I want to become a researcher? Because PhDs don't have to, only work in the higher education industry. It can be in other industries as well, and certainly can be applied to other careers. And then some of you might be on the call and thinking, well, Rachel, I'm looking at a professional program, such as fields like medicine, education, law, pharmacy, or social work. And that's, again, just to name a few of the paths. And so, as you can see, depending on what you're motivated by, right? In terms of your outcome, it could look like a master's degree, it could look like a doctoral program, PhD, or it could look like a professional program. Think MD, JD, MSW, and the like. So high level overview on that.
Excellent. Very helpful. Next question. What are some of the more common reasons to attend graduate or professional schools based on your experience and what you've seen?
Yeah, of course, of course. So I kind of categorize it into 3 different buckets. And so you'll see those on the screen here: career starter, career enhancer, and career changer. And I meet with students that really go across the spectrum. So let's first start with career starter. So asking yourself, is this graduate degree or professional program an entree into starting my career? I just mentioned a few moments ago that my first master's degree was in library and information science. I wanted to start my career as a librarian, and to do that, I needed a master's degree. For some of you on the call, you may say, I want to be a pharmacist or a medical doctor. And so to do that, you need to have a professional degree to start that career. Oftentimes, though, for particular programs, like an example would be an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration. When I advised about 550 students, many of them were using that MBA to enhance their career. They had 3 to 5 years of experience as a staff member, as an associate. Some of them might have been engineers. A lot of engineers actually wanted an MBA mid-career because they'd reached a point where they were supervising people, and so they wanted to understand the full picture of business. So they use that as a career enhancer. But then also I work a lot with career changers. An example would be just last week, I chatted with someone that had worked for years at Amway and realized throughout she was developing people and the like, and said, I think I really am exploring social work, and decided to do a career shift into that field. Again, it was after a lot of research and those sorts of things. So there is many times you can use a graduate degree to shift careers and to pivot careers as well. And so in terms of thinking through, common reasons to attend graduate school, thinking about, is this going to start my career? Like, am I going to reach a barrier of entry into a career path without having a graduate degree? Or am I using this to enhance my career? And you could actually put, Dale, an MSW into this as well, because many times individuals can practice with a BSW, but then reach a certain point where like, oh, I want to expand my scope of practice, and an MSW is going to enhance my career. And then you also have the career changers as well. So those are the common buckets, if you will, that I see.
You bring up a good point. You talked about working with someone on looking at an MBA program, particularly people with an engineering or technical background. And I think it's pretty common that for a full-time graduate program, for some of the top MBA programs, you want probably a minimum of 2 to 3 years or more of experience.
Yes, you got it.
Good. So let's turn it now to our audience. What questions do you have? And I cannot see you because I have the screen in front of me that I'm working through. So either put in a question in the chat. One of our staff is going to be texting me to my cell phone questions, or if you prefer, just unmute yourself, ask questions about either what Rachel's touched on or other questions related to finding in this process of clarifying. And then next we're going to talk about fit. But any questions on this topic before we go to the next section?
So one of the questions, Dale, is if you are still uncertain as to what you want to do in the future, is grad school a bad idea? And we can both comment on this. Mackenzie, the reality is graduate school is an investment financially and also with your time. And so if you're unsure, it's difficult potentially for you then to craft a compelling narrative, right, as to why you want a particular graduate program and what is it going to do for you in a particular career. And so I often, again, not to dissuade you from pursuing graduate school rather than an undergraduate experience, but you do want to think through the question as to why. And so do students pursue graduate school and they might not know exactly what they want? Sure. But then are they going to get the most out of that experience? Does that make sense in terms of, the experience, internships, and those sorts of things? Anyway, and Dale, feel free to comment too, because you work a lot with students and I'm sure that don't quite know the path, right? And maybe you're using graduate school, for lack of a better, not as a buffer into employment and those sorts of things. And one more thing on that, depending on the program, like an example would be at Grand Valley and other schools, there's a number of professional science masters, or an example would be like a Master of Health Administration or a Master of Public Administration that might have an internship component as part of their graduate degree. And if that's the case, if they are working with pre-career students and have that, absolutely it makes sense because it's preparing you to enter into the workforce. And many times those internships can pivot into full-time opportunities. But I'd be really hesitant to go into graduate school and kind of thinking through like, ooh, I don't know what I want. And now I'm getting a graduate degree in said area. Thoughts, Dale?
Yeah, great insights. I'll reflect on my own experience. I actually did this, Mackenzie. I pursued a graduate program, not because I knew what I was going to do with it, but because I loved the field that I was studying. And after a year, and it was a 3-year program, and was studying theology. After a year in another country studying, I thought, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this. And so I pursued a graduate degree in higher ed administration, which I have stayed in for, just a few years. And so, my advice would be to talk to people in the types of graduate programs that you're thinking about, as well as consider the possibility of doing a gap year or two to get experience to help you understand your skill set, your interests, things that you enjoy, things that you don't. We can help you with some kind of shorter term options to clarify those longer term goals, because as Rachel said, when you're talking about your personal statement and you're articulating your narrative of why you want to pursue it, you want to have a compelling case, and graduate school is demanding. And you want to make sure that you're there and ready to dig in and really go after it. And fortunately, Hope and our undergraduate preparation is great preparation for graduate school. But those would be my tips. And great, thank you for raising the question. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Rachel, thank you for finding that. I appreciate that. We're going to go on to the next question and the next area, and this deals with the fit issue. And one thing that I wonder is, how does one determine what to pursue in graduate school or professional school? And this ties a little bit to Mackenzie's question. And so let's talk about that next.
Let's do it. All right. And Dale, you just alluded to this as well, is talking to individuals, right? And so what individuals should you be chatting with? Your academic advisor, other faculty. I love Hope College because they value that relationship with the student. And so kind of asking yourself too, if you find someone that has a position, whether that be a staff member that you're like, I would love to be doing this, right? What was their path to get to what they're particularly doing? And everybody might have a different narrative, a different story, right? But speaking with people that are mentoring to you, other faculty members, can really help you determine and kind of solidify what are your long-term goals and how do you find the right fit. In addition to that, and these are things that I would say to kind of do the hard work of asking yourself questions like, what do you find exciting? Where do your passions lie? And those are pretty heavy questions, right? And knowing that there's maybe not a right answer. I mean, do we really know what we want to be when we grow up, right? And the Boerigter Center can help with that, doing career assessments, meeting with Dale's team, thinking through some questions about, so where are some of my goals? And then back those goals up and asking, is a graduate degree, is that going to help me get to where I need to go? So short-term and long-term career goals will help sometimes solidify finding the right fit, if going to graduate school makes sense, and also when it might make sense.
Great. Good tips. And as Rachel said, we're happy to sit down with you and have conversations. Faculty and your advisors are huge in this process. And so please take advantage of them. They really want to spend time with you and help you clarify these important questions. Another question as we think about fit issues would be, what are the factors or criteria that are important as we consider attending a particular school and deciding on which school might be the right school for us?
Right. And as Dale mentioned, Hope College prepares students for graduate school. I've been recruiting a long time, and I loved coming to Hope to recruit. I used to, as Dale mentioned, work for the UIC College of Pharmacy, and I would love coming to Hope because the students are so well prepared for graduate school, professional school, and the like. And so sometimes for you then, I mean, quite candidly, is you've got choice, right? As to where do you apply, what programs you wish to apply to. And so as you're researching programs, thinking through what are the track records of graduates. So what are some statistics that they're putting out on their website as to where their graduate students are working at or doing research at? What are their next steps? Also, demographics and culture. Who do you want to surround yourself with? And what I mean by that is that it's sometimes not sexy, right, to think about cost of living, okay? But as you move to a city, whether that be the East Coast or West Coast or stay in the Midwest, what cultures do you want to be a part of? The demographics, do you like major cities? Is it going to be a higher cost of living there? Those are some practical things, right, that do come into play when you're finding the right fit. Also, specifically in particular programs where there's a research component, right, such as biology, cell and molecular biology, some of the harder sciences where the faculty publications and research are really paramount to you, because for a fully funded PhD program, you are absolutely working alongside that faculty. Is there an opportunity to rotate labs where you can see a variety of different opportunities to get engaged, right? And so do your research interests align with faculty? Also, admissions requirements. And it's interesting, again, sometimes this is more for my career changers at times where thinking about a GRE or a GMAT is kind of daunting, right? You might be mid-career and you're thinking, oh my stars, if I've got to take that test, not that it's a barrier to entry, but you're just like, oh, there might be another program that I don't necessarily need to do this heavy lift, right? You might look at programs that, quite frankly, are a stretch school where their GPA is a touch higher than what yours currently is, right? So looking through like average GPAs and those sorts of things, but also saying, I could stretch and I could apply to this particular program. So admissions requirements are important to consider in what they're asking you to submit. And then funding. And I know we're going to do a deep dive into that in a few moments, but that's absolutely an important criteria. Did you garner a graduate assistantship, a fellowship? Are you a TA? Is this going to be fully funded? Matters. Absolutely, it does. And so these are just a handful of things to think about, important factors to consider when you're choosing a graduate school. And you might have others, right? That are really important to you. And so that kind of is also important for you to think about what are factors that are important to you as to graduate education and things. And I would often say to students, using the same sort of criteria that you did to choose Hope College, think about that in relationship to choosing a graduate school as well. So hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, great tips. And my sense, Rachel, is that you'd advise students even to visit some schools as they're trying to decide, talk to students, talk to faculty, get a sense of the culture, of just the feel of the school. And with admissions requirements, you talked about the graduate record exam, the GRE, graduate management admission test, GMAT. I mean, there are quite a range of potential admissions tests. So we can help you figure that out. And there's a great website called petersons.com that provides information as you're looking at graduate programs. And we have Peterson's Guide to Graduate Study in the career office in the Boerigter Center that, we've got about 6 volumes about this thick. It would have deadlines, all kinds of information as you're trying to sort through schools. We're going to talk about the application process in a couple minutes, but just some things to think about and keep in mind and potential resources. So let's pause. We've just finished the second section. And please either unmute yourself or pop into chat and bring us some questions on this topic. I'm patient. So maybe you'll have an idea later related to this fit issue. So by all means, bring it up. You can bring it up at any point. Here we go. Oh, great. Maria, is there a guide to where to start looking for grad schools? There are so many. Rachel, I'll let you respond and then I'll throw in my 2 cents.
Yeah. And as Dale mentioned, Peterson's Guide, great resource, but also I would ask, what is your field that you are looking at, right? And so an example would be, I'm just going to use MHA, Master of Health Administration, as an example. Typically for schools that are essentially, like I call it the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval, right? That are accredited, okay? You might want to start at their accrediting body, okay? CAMI or whatever's in business. AACSB accredits business schools, okay? So you might want to start there and say, okay, this accreditation matters. It's basically saying, hey, an outside body said that the curriculum is strong, their outcomes are strong, et cetera. So why don't I start there? And most accrediting bodies will have a list of programs that they've accredited essentially, and you could filter, right? You could filter by format of the program. Is it online, hybrid, et cetera? And so I would start there. I'd start with the field that you're looking at. Who is the accrediting body in that particular field, and start your search there to kind of narrow it, right? And then in addition to that, if you have particular universities in mind, right? Like, or a particular area within, I only want Midwest schools. So you can maybe identify into schools in that particular area and see if they have your various programs. But that could be, I don't want to send anybody down a rabbit hole. I'd first start with the accrediting body or your professional organization that's attached to that particular, industry. Professional organizations as well typically will list all of their programs. What are their admissions requirements? If anybody's on the call that is applying through a centralized application system, it's called the CAS system, right? They also will have very robust filters within the CAS system that you can filter and start looking at what are the requirements, et cetera. So that's how I would approach.
Great tips. And I would the accreditation piece is key. I would also talk to faculty. They're going to have connections in their professional circles, within their profession. And particularly, you can talk to them about your goals for that grad program. And, if you're pursuing a particular area in the sciences, one school might make more sense than another. And the faculty know you. They can talk and think about your grades, how well you take tests, and really say, well, school X might be too much of a stretch, but these schools I think you could really excel in. And so I think that faculty and consulting with them, and then finally, we have a resource that we can give you access to. It's put out by the US News and World Report. It's called a Graduate School Compass. And on the compass, it provides information on the GPA and the standardized test scores of accepted students in a wide range of programs. There's a subscription cost to it. We can take care of that, give you free access to that. If you're interested in that, just email me and we can address that later. So great question. Thank you, Maria. So let's move on to the next section. So let me get us out of chat here a second, and let me pose the next question. And that is, what are some of the common as well as overlooked sources for financing a graduate or professional school? So both common and maybe things that students wouldn't think about.
Sure, absolutely. And so one of the pieces too is scholarships and fellowships, right? So doing kind of a deep dive onto you identified 2 or 3 programs that you're like, I'm all in on these. Okay. So then looking at their financial aid sites, the program sites to determine, do they have scholarships and fellowships available? Many times they will be competitive, right? Based on GPA, academic, profile, essentially, essay, et cetera. And so then if you want to, great, thank you. Then graduate assistantships. So some of you might be familiar with this, some of you might not be. So I'm going to do a quick definition of a graduate assistantship. Essentially, it's a position or a job, whether that be with your department or across the university, potentially doing research alongside of faculty, teaching assistant, special projects. And if a university has a graduate school and is offering graduate programs, often they will have some sort of graduate assistantships to help fund a portion of their students. As you can imagine, they are competitive, right? And every graduate program will have different. An example would be, is it 20 hours of work that you're working? What kind of stipend will you be receiving in terms of financial stipend? So those are really good questions to ask. Typically your graduate program director. So at the graduate school level, they'll have a graduate program director typically that's overseeing the program. So I always tell students, the first step, get admitted to your program, okay? And then also start thinking about like, okay, what are the GA positions that are available that I would be potentially that I could apply to, whether that be in your department or across the university. Of course, it's not attractive. I get it. It's loans, it's student loans, right? A large portion, though, of graduate students, if they're not in a PhD program that typically is fully funded, are going to maybe take on or incur some sort of student loans. In addition to that, you might not be thinking about this, but employer support is actually a nice benefit that some employers do offer their staff. And so, especially if you're pursuing a degree, that you've got 3 or 4 years of work experience and the like, there might be an opportunity that they would help support that through what's called tuition reimbursement. Okay. And then there's some loan forgiveness programs, right? So if you work in an area that's been identified as an area that has, and Dale probably has a better word, not special needs area. We were just chatting about that last week, Dale, where essentially there's a high need, right? And so teaching programs, et cetera, there might be some loan forgiveness programs in certain areas within the US and beyond, certainly. So those are typically your funding sources that are available to you when you're thinking about graduate school. And that's where I also will say this, is thinking about your return on investment. I know sometimes that's not a great conversation to have, but I think it's important as you're thinking about investing into a master's degree or professional program. Is your salary going to command a return on investment? And many times it will, right? Because you're advancing your education and the like, but those are things to think about as well in terms of when to go to graduate school and what that investment is going to look like from you and what type of potential return that you'll receive. So.
Great. Yeah, great tips. Yeah, the loan forgiveness program, both online, and there are some print resources that deal with or provide information on different places that would qualify for loan forgiveness. I think you want to look at the type of loan that you're getting through the government, because it is particular to particular types of loans that you would get for graduate school. And then there are certain areas that tend to lean more in terms of the service industries, whether it's teaching, social work, nursing, the health professions, et cetera. But certainly a good source to be thinking about and to not forget about. And on the Boerigter website, we've got a section on scholarships and fellowships and funding sources for that under our graduate school planning resource on the Boerigter site. So more information there for a later point. And Rachel did a great job of talking about different types of assistantships, both internal to your program, but I know when I was doing my graduate work at Michigan State, I worked in the Service Learning Center, and it had people from all different disciplines working in the Service Learning Center, helping to set up experiential programs in the greater Lansing area for Michigan State. And so we've had grads work in the Career Services Office at the University of Michigan, and they were in social work, and they ended up wanting to do that. And so I think broadly, a lot of student services at big universities rely on graduate assistants for their manpower, for their human power, because it's great labor and it's inexpensive and there's no healthcare costs. So great things to think about. So let's pause now and let's see if there are any questions about money, about funding this, that Rachel would be able to respond to. And then once she responds, I'll respond if it makes sense. So again, unmute yourself if you want. We've not had any brave souls yet do that, but or just hop into the chat and give us a message. We'll wait for a minute until we go to our final section dealing with the whole application process. Well, it worked for me last time, so I'll do it again. So if there are no questions, we can address them later. And I'm not seeing a question pop into our box. So we're going to now segue to talking about the whole application process, which is really exciting. And so what are some of the key materials that I need to submit when thinking about applying? What do I have to keep in mind?
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of thinking about the application process is, I always encourage students spend 20 to 30 minutes on the school site, right? And their application requirements will be there either on the site or in the graduate catalog that they have, and understanding that the requirements do vary by program. And so if you haven't done so already, little pro tip, make a Word doc, an Excel spreadsheet, and start kind of bucketing when I say bucketing them out, but like name of the school, name of the program, when is the deadline, because deadlines vary, requirements vary, but standard, admissions requirements look like a personal statement, recommendation letters, transcripts, resume, CV. Of course, we mentioned, other requirements earlier, such as the GRE, GMAT, LSAT, MCAT, a portfolio, a writing sample. And as I mentioned, deadlines vary. And so as you're cultivating relationships with your faculty, thinking through who could address a recommendation letter for you. Depending on when you apply, it might be a faculty member, it might be a colleague or a supervisor or a manager at work, right? Your transcripts, official transcripts are sent typically from your institution to the school that you're applying to. And the resume and CV, make sure you've got great resources at Hope College that you review that resume, right? Or that CV if you're planning to apply to something that's, PhD oriented and such. So that's high level on the application process. And I think the next slide talks a little bit more, remind me, Dale, on the application piece, but this might be it too. So.
Yeah, no, in the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about personal statements.
That's right.
Just briefly, but this is a great overview, and I don't want to cut you off. So are you all set with your key pieces? You got it? Perfect.
You got it.
I'd like to stress what Rachel mentioned, and that is creating a Google sheet where you've got all of this spread out. Because if you're going to be applying to 5, 7, 9 schools, you don't want all that stuff rattling around in your head, trying to remember. You've got enough that you're thinking about. So you want it all there. It's whenever you have updates, etc. Everything is there on your screen, rather than a little piece here, and this piece is somewhere in the cosmos. You want it down, easy to access. Also, as deadlines vary, as she mentioned, you want to keep in mind some schools are going to have rolling admission. Mm-hmm. Rolling admission is where a school is going to start the process as early as October, looking at candidates, and they're going to accept some, reject some, and then hold some over to the next cycle, maybe in November. And then they're going to do the same thing. And they do that each month or so until the final deadline. So in a rolling admission school, it's better to get your application in earlier, because the longer you wait, the fewer slots are available to be admitted. So the deadlines can range, and then standard deadlines can range anywhere from November through sometime in March. Most commonly, it's probably January, February, but again, it's going to be on either side of that. For those of you in the health professions, which I don't think we'll have many of, but make sure you're working with Mary Kay Dobbins. She's the pre-health advisor. She's your go-to person for really all of this. I should have said that at the beginning, so my apologies, but she is your go-to person. Also, on our website, on the graduate school website, we have a whole section on timetables, what to do when and why. And so that's a helpful planning guide that you can access. And then as you're trying to decide on what schools to attend once you're accepted, well, maybe we'll talk about that a little later, but as you think about that, you want to also think about your funding sources in terms of where you're accepted and the amount of money that each school is going to give you, because that can really vary. And that could also impact where you decide to go to school. So let's talk, a little bit about writing a personal statement. And what are your thoughts on that, Rachel?
Yeah. So personal statements, as I mentioned, is your ability to craft your narrative, right, as to why. And so why do you want to apply to that particular program? What's great about it? And how does it fit within your goals? And so, and who do you hope to study and work with? And so these should be customized to the program that you're applying to. And so another place to go, as well as to making sure that you understand who the faculty are. Many of them will have their area of research interests and the like. And so doing some research in order to craft that personal statement. And then also, just again, this idea of narrative, story, giving examples of something you did that demonstrates you're a hard worker, demonstrates you have empathy if you're applying to social work, or demonstrates, a particular characteristic that would be important in that particular field. Detail orientedness, right? Those sorts of things. And also, as I just mentioned just a couple of seconds ago, actually, is tailoring that personal statement to each school that you do apply to. Certainly, you can reuse some parts of your personal statement. I mean, it's your narrative, right? And some things don't shift a lot, but the idea is that you need to help that admissions committee connect the dots as to why you would be a good fit for their program. And it should be about each school getting a particular statement. And so those are some tips. Again, you've got phenomenal faculty, phenomenal staff at Hope College that can help, tweak, read, you're going to craft the initial statement, but they can provide some feedback before you actually submit it. And I would absolutely use your resources at Hope College to do that.
Yeah, great quick overview. This is delightful. Thank you. I just like to stress two quickies. First is the last bullet point, and to stress it because I review personal statements for graduate and professional schools, as do faculty. And one of the things that I find frequently students will do is at the very end of the essay, they'll put why they want that school. And I do not advise that because it looks like it's an add-on, because it is. And so what you want to do is integrate why that school into the body of your essay, so that as Rachel says, it's tailored to that particular school. That will carry much more weight, and that's what you want, is you want weight in this process. Also, I have about a 3.5-minute video just on how to write a personal statement. And so that's in Handshake in our resources section for graduate school, or you can simply email careers@hope.edu. We'll send it to you, but it's just a helpful tool as you begin working up a draft. And then once you have a draft, visit the Writing Center so that they can give you feedback on dangling prepositions and other grammatical issues. And then once you've had that reviewed by them, I'd be happy, or our staff would be happy, to review a draft that you've already started, just to help with the whole process. So final question before we get to just any question would be, what are those steps that I can take to strengthen my application?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, it is a top bullet point, a strong academic performance, right? And so, I always would say to students, even though you're thinking, okay, I'm getting this, develop a study group, do tutoring, right? I mean, that strong academic performance sets the stage for a lot of things. Strong admissions test score, if you're taking the GRE, the GMAT, and the like. Undergraduate research and presentations. You have I know Hope does a lot of work with research and such. And so connecting with a faculty member as to what is their research, how can you get involved with it, volunteer engagement, conferences. So again, building that network, right? And I also think that helps validate that, yes, this is the graduate program that I'm interested in. This is the career path for me. I enjoy being around these individuals, right? And so by attending conferences, and then I know we've talked a lot about this, but your faculty advisors, the staff at Hope, they want you to be successful. They want to get to know you and develop a personal relationship and hear what your goals are and maybe help to find those as well. And so this idea of mentoring by faculty and staff certainly assists in strengthening an application. But I do want to emphasize for particular programs too, depending on the type of program, I always tell the students, let the admissions committee make the decision. And what I mean by that is that sometimes there's programs that are going to be able to admit a student conditionally, right? You're like, Rachel, I talk with many students that might have said, it was a real hard transition from high school to that first year of college. And then I didn't do my very best, or I was in classes that I realized, wow, I needed to switch my major, right? And so that first and second year might not be as strong as you had wanted it to be, but then the last 60 credit hours, you're doing outstanding work. And so I would say that many admissions committees are going to look holistically at that application, might even focus on the last 60 credit hours and such. And so going back to, right, understanding the admissions process, asking them, do they do a conditional admission for that first semester, et cetera, will be helpful to you, that you feel comfortable and confident, right, in applying and such. So hopefully that helps in terms of how to strengthen your application and to maximize, right, your Hope College experience.
Outstanding. Yeah, great points. And just to return to a point that Rachel had made much earlier in our time together, is there are some areas where there could be value in how to strengthen your application by getting experience. And so you may want to simply, not only to help clarify your career goals, but really to gain skills and experiences that will strengthen your application. There are other areas where it's really smarter to go right on. Areas where the content in your field is changing, literally every day with research that might be going on, is in many instances, you want to be able to go right on. There'll be other areas where there could be value in taking a year or 2 or 3 off and could actually strengthen your application. So great tips, Rachel. What I'd like to do next is just open it up to questions that you might have about both this topic, about the application process, but also just in general, any questions that you might have, feel free to either unmute yourself or to pop in a question in the chat box, and happy to address whatever you might be wondering. Well, either, Rachel, we were very thorough, or we have a group. Oh, excellent. Thank you. I see Rachel on the screen, on the chat box. So
yes,
this is how to reach her. Copy and paste it. And this will also be in our program because we're recording this. So this will be here for future reference. And I would imagine that they could also find you on the Grand Valley website.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and speaking of that too, Dale, you had mentioned earlier about visiting campuses. We do at Grand Valley, individual appointments, in-person appointments, virtual phone appointments, but then also some programs as well. Do particularly do some visit days and those sorts of things. We always encourage students, if you want program specific information, do reach out to the program, but we're happy to meet with individuals as well. I do it weekly, daily, and I love it. So yeah, yeah.
Great. Well, Rachel, I just hats off to you for spending this time with us and our students. They, as Lena had talked about in a chat, each of them appreciate your insights from your great wealth of experience from all the different campuses that you've had experience both as a student and working in different programs and now at Grand Valley. And so thank you very much. And then also, I'd like to thank everyone here for participating. This is going to be taped and will be available also for later viewing. And if you have further questions, feel free also not only to reach out to Rachel, but Austin at hope.edu. We're going to handshake, schedule a meeting for grad school planning, and it can simply be, I'm not sure where to start. Can you help me? We're happy to do whatever we can so you feel confident about planning your futures. So best wishes. And at this point, I'm going to stop the screen share and I'm going to conclude our session today. So thank you all for coming and best wishes as you continue with this semester. And Rachel, thank you again.
You're welcome. Have a great semester. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.